Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Oldham County Board of Adjustments. Today is September 21st. It is a little bit after 9 o'clock, and we are now in session. We have 5 cases before us today. Procedure for all 5 is going to be the same. Here in a minute, I'm going to swear staff in, and then Gretchen's going to read the actual docket item. Staff's going to come up to the podium and give us a staff report. When he's done with giving the staff report, there will be a round of questioning by board members to staff. When we're done with that, staff's going to take a seat. I'm going to call you, the applicant, forward. You're going to come forward to the podium. Make sure you speak into the mic. Make sure you're at the podium when you're talking. Things are being recorded, so make sure you're up here. You're going to be sworn in, state your name and address, and justify your project. When you're done with that, there will be a line of questioning by board members to you, the applicant. And when we're done with that, you may take a seat. I'm going to call forward anybody that wishes to speak in favor of the application, and then those opposed to the application. And it's the same procedure. Come forward to the podium, speak into the mic, be sworn in, state your name and address, tell us why you're in favor, tell us why you're opposed. There might be a round of questioning to those. When we're done with that, you may take a seat. I will have time for rebuttal, and then we will have final statements. I will open it up for the board for questions for anybody in the audience. And when we're done with that, I'm going to close the floor, open it up for general discussion among board members, and call for an up and down vote. When you, the applicant, are forward justifying your project, you'll have 20 minutes to do so. And then those in favor, and then those opposed to the application collectively, 10. You'll have 10 minutes collectively. So those in favor will have 10 minutes to talk about why they're in favor, and then those opposed will have 10 minutes to talk why they're opposed. 5 minutes for rebuttal, 5 minutes for final statements. Clock's on the wall. And with that, let's make sure cell phones are turned off or on vibrate. If you need to use your cell phones, please excuse yourself from the courtroom. Just make sure it's off when you come back in. Board members, please make sure your mics are on, and let's swear staff in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Gretchen, if you could read the, pardon me. We are going to reorder I don't know if you guys have an agenda or not, but we're going to reorder what's on the agenda. OC 23034 will come first, and then after that, we'll go in the order as it is before us. Gretchen, could you please read the first one?
OC 23-034, an application has been filed requesting a front yard setback variance for a proposed single-family residence at a property located at 6285 Clore Lane, Crestwood.
Good morning, Brian Fogel, Assistant Director, Oldham County Planning Development Services. The request is at 6285 Clore Lane, which is Lot 300 in Brentwood subdivision for a front yard setback. Notification was provided for today's meeting on our website. Notice is mailed to the adjoining property owners, and a legal advertisement appeared in the Oldham Mirror. This is the location of the property right here, highlighted in red. In May of this year, you guys heard, so we'll probably make reference to it, a similar variance request on a house that was right here on this corner lot. And then the zoning in the area. This particular lot is bisected by the zoning district line, where the green portion is conservation, the yellow portion is R2. The conservation has a 50-foot front yard setback. The R2 has a 35-foot front yard setback. When the developer recorded the subdivision plat, and I'll show you that here in a minute, they went ahead and drew a 50-foot setback line across the entire length of this lot. And then when you get to this lot here and the other shaded in yellow, it has a 35 front yard setback. Real briefly, in terms of the site history, Brentwood subdivision was originally approved in July of 2008. A revised preliminary plat was approved in August of 2019, and then this particular section of Brentwood subdivision was approved in August of last year. And this is that subdivision plat. This is lot 300 right here. Here's that 50-foot building setback line right here. And then you can see where you get into the lots that are completely in the R2 zoning district have a 35-foot building setback line right here. And this is the zoning district line. The request is to vary the 50-foot front yard setback by 15 feet to where they would have a 35 front yard setback. This is their plot plan showing where they're proposing to locate the house on the lot. Here's the 50-foot front yard setback right here. Oops. And there's the showing where they're proposing the 35-foot front yard setback. And then just a building elevation of the house that they're proposing. This would be the front of the house. This would be the back of the house. In their justification statement, they provide two justifications. One would be that if they're required to put the house 50 feet back, that it would be out of line with the other houses on the street, either because they have a 35-foot front yard setback or that corner lot that you guys heard in May was approved for a 35 front yard setback. Additionally, they're stating that due to the topography of the lot, because it slopes off in the back, that if they have to push the house back 50 feet, that could impact the possibility of, in the future of putting a patio or a pool in the backyard. And here's just a few pictures of the lot. This is looking at the lot 300 right here from the street. This is the back of the house on a street that's on the other side of the slope. This is just panning back a little bit. This is the house in May that you all gave a variance for with the 35 front yard setback. This is looking towards Crestwood. Prior sections of Brentwood are up here. This is Clore Lane right here. There is a house under construction across from this lot. And then this is looking out towards the interstate. This is the house that you all approved in May with the 35 front yard setback. This is that house that fronts on the back street. And then just one more picture from the back of the lot. You can see how the lot does drop down from the street. So Clore Lane would be up here. You can see the rooftop of the house that's under construction across from this one. And then this is the house that you all granted a variance for in May. So in summary, they're requesting a 15-foot variance from the front yard setback. And that concludes the staff presentation. We did not receive any phone calls with questions or concerns. Also, we did not receive any correspondence expressing any concerns.
Okay. All right, thank you. Questions for Brian?
Yeah, if you go back to the plot plan, please.
For the house or the subdivision?
For the house, please.
Okay.
It's not the plat, there you go. We're in between CO1 and, that's the conservation, and then the R1, is it?
R2.
R2, thank you. Where approximately is that on that property?
It's approximately right in here, and I'm going to go one more about right here. So here's that zoning line right there.
Right.
So I can't tell you specifically
Okay.
where the house is at, but the house, for all intents and purposes, is located in the R2 portion.
Okay, if you go back to the plot plan again.
All right.
So, in your opinion, would the garage be in R2?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the line right there at the 35 feet, that is not the dividing line between the two zones, right?
That is correct. The dividing line of the two zones would approximately be somewhere about right here.
Okay. All right. Further questions? Okay, thank you.
All right.
And if we could have the applicant come forward? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Cliff Ashburner. I'm with Dinsmore and Shoal, 101 South Fifth Street, Louisville 40202. Here today on behalf of Thieneman Conley Construction. I think Brian did a good job setting out the basics of the case. This is what boards of zoning adjustment, Board of Adjustments are meant for, to provide a relief valve for instances where the regulations don't seem to make quite as much sense. Here, I would say that, and I appreciate your questions, Member Ward, that the home on the site really is respecting the 50-foot setback when in the CO zone. The portion of the lot that's in R2 is the area where we have that small encroachment. So this is the area of the subject property. You can see it's still under development. This is, the photo on the left is the lot. Obviously, Brian had a good photo of that. Photo on the right is the home that's on the adjacent property. Here is that plot plan, and as Brian mentioned, the CO zoning might clip the rear left corner of the house. I'm not really sure it even does that. And the area of the proposed encroachment really is for the garage, to allow for a larger garage that would come out and be accessed on the side, so it would not be a front entry garage. Here is just a kind of a marked up version of the subdivision plan. You can see the 35-foot setback here. You all allowed an encroachment to go to 35 feet on the left. Typically, we want to keep streetscapes relatively consistent, and so we think that this small encroachment makes sense. I don't know that it would have been possible to have a varied building limit line across a lot, but if it were possible, this would be the lot that you could do it on, and we would not need the variance we're seeking from you today. Again, this is the home, the proposed home. Very nice home, in keeping with the deed restrictions and all the other commitments that are made by builders in Brentwood, with the exception of this one variance. So I don't know that I have too much to add to Brian's analysis. I think the variance is justified based on the fact that the encroachment is really occurring in the R2 portion of the lot. It's a minor encroachment, and as I said, the bulk of the house is maintaining that 50-foot setback. In addition, the setbacks on either side of the subject property are at 35 feet. So I think this would actually make the building more consistent within the neighborhood than not. So I'm happy to take any questions. Stacy Conley is here as well from Thieneman Conley, if you have questions for her.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Cliff?
Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed to the application? Cliff, anything else to add? Board members, questions for anybody?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to close the floor, open it up for discussion. Seems pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, we've looked at this
Easiest one
road
we
before.
have. Don't get much easier than this.
Yeah. And we've looked at this situation on this particular street before on a lot that was entirely in the CO. This is a small portion of the property, so it seems pretty straightforward to me as well.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Motion to approve OC 23-034 for a front yard setback variance for a proposed single-family residence at the property located at 6285 Clore Lane in Crestwood. The variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare and will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity. It will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public. It will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations either because, as we've mentioned, this has already been looked at and deemed reasonable. on this road, and this is a small portion of this property that is being affected by the CO zoning. Conditions of approval, the variance shall only apply to the application considered at the September 21st, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. That is my motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. All right, Gretchen, if you'd like to read the next one, please.
OC 23-032, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit to allow a detached accessory dwelling unit on the property located at 4615 Sadler's Mill Road in LaGrange.
All right, Ryan Fisher, Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning. The application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit on that property at 4615 Sadler's Mill Road in LaGrange. Zoning classification is in an R2A, sits on 1.02 acres. No site history. We did do all the proper notifications. I posted to our website on the 30th. Adjoining property owner notices were mailed on the 6th of September, and it was posted in the Oldham Era on the 7th of September. Here's the property in question. Just across the street is Oldham County Country Club. Down this direction is 393. Here's your zoning map showing it's in an R2A. So the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit for a proposed office and hobby dwelling on the 1.02 acre tract. Project consists of a single-story, 21 by 38 foot, so 798 square foot slab on grade ADU that will include a living room, a kitchen, a bedroom, a full bathroom, and a garage. The ADU, according to the plans provided, has 706 square feet of living space. So section 250-040, E number 5 states that detached accessory dwelling units shall not exceed 25% of the primary structure square footage. So according to the PVA, the home is 4,373 square feet with a 1,794 square foot finished basement. So they could technically have an ADU that would be 1,542 square feet. So they comply with that as it's only 706. And the applicant meets the remaining regulations found within that section. So here is the property in question, Sadler's Mill Road down here. The proposed building will be just to the right of the primary dwelling. Just a couple building plans for you. And then showing the floor plan of the space. What it will look like from the front. And then just a couple pictures of the property. So the ADU will be around in this location. And then just a couple photos looking down Sadler's Mill each direction, the golf course being here on the left. So this mailbox is the property. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit at that property at 4615 Sadler's Mill. And the conditions of approval of the conditional use permit shall only apply to the plans considered at the September 21st, 2003 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Questions?
Could you go back to the photo of the house and it also shows the,
You want this one or that one?
no, go back one, that one. That's actually the black roof and the white is actually part of that house. It's not it's the.
Are you talking about this one?
Yeah, that's not that's
So
not
this
a
is actually an
detached.
accessory dwelling unit as well on the neighbor's house. So the house in question here is we're looking at this one, but yeah, the neighbors have something very similar.
Is it detached or?
It is detached.
It is
yeah.
detached. So there's a standard in the neighborhood for this.
Yeah.
It's not a,
There was another one
it's
there.
not a
yes.
rare thing.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a hobby/live-in situation?
I'll let the applicant talk about kind of what they're using it for. When I talked to them, it was more man cave, hobby type of area, things like that. But I'll let the applicant address those on what their intended use of it is, if that's okay.
Okay, any other questions?
And we received no correspondence on
Okay,
any.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
And if we can have the applicant come forward? Morning. And I need you to be sworn in and state your name and address.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Name and address?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Daniel Lassiter. My address is 4615 Sadler Mill Road, LaGrange, Kentucky, 40031.
Okay.
So the gentleman with the Planning and Zoning Commission did a pretty good job of explaining what we want it for. It is going to be a detached, independent dwelling just off to the side, setback, quiet. I have a very large family. We typically host anywhere from 15 to 20 people over the Christmas holidays. It's all family. We pack in, it's a big house, but we pack in pretty tight. My mother has recently come to live with us, and I run a business out of the home, and being able to have a space where I can run my business, have a tool space to set up in that second garage, be able to host family when they come over, that's really what the goal was. As mentioned, my neighbor built a very nice garage about 2 years ago now, and that kind of kick-started the idea. Not quite keeping up with the Joneses, but it kind of percolated the idea. And when my mother had to come live with us, it became clear that having some extra space would be a good thing. I also have a 4-year-old son who is autistic, and there's a pretty significant chance that he'll need support later in life than what might otherwise be the case. And having a space where he could be semi-independent, should that become necessary, would be a nice thing to have. And that's, we're very much trying to think long-term. When we purchased the property 5 years ago, the roof was not in great shape, and there were some other issues with the property. We've since spent about $50,000 improving the property, and part of that's gone into that metal roof that you see there in that photo. So we're just trying to plan long-term because we plan to be here permanently.
Okay.
That's all
All
I
right,
have.
thank you, Daniel. Questions?
I have a question. This looks like a very nice neighborhood. I guess my concern is you're gonna, you're asking for this separate place. Are you thinking about ever renting it out?
No, sir. It's purely for, like I said, I have a very large family. Last year, it was my sister-in-law, her 2 kids, my cousin and her 2 kids, and my brother and his wife, and they're now pregnant, so next time it'll be their son, all packed into the house together, and we'd like to have a little bit more space to spread out than what we currently have. So that's really the goal of having things like the kitchen and the bathroom and the bedroom there. Rather than just a strict man cave or garage space.
And a full basement?
There is no basement, it's a slab.
Okay.
Okay. I have questions regarding the use of it. So I think it was on the application, you spelled out a hobby office space.
Yes, sir.
We've also heard ADU for relatives or whomever, and then possible ADU for your son later in life. But you're also running a business out of the house right now, and you're looking to run your business out of this space as well. What type of business is that? What do you do?
It's an audiovisual installation and integration company, so I would be setting up things like video walls, having computer racks set up. It wouldn't be anything that causes any noise, but it does need an office space for me to set up and test equipment.
Okay. All right, is the primary reason for this currently for space to run the business out of?
That is one of the main reasons, yes.
Do you have a permit? Maybe I need to
Yes, I am
bring
permitted.
staff back up. But
Yeah, I am permitted with Oldham County, and I do pay all my taxes and all that good stuff. I can give you the name of this. I believe so, but I would have to check with my CPA.
Well, that's why I was going to bring staff back up. But
Yes, because I'm confused.
Just to be clear on what he's asking you, do you have a home occupation permit from the Planning and Zoning Office? I can't remember whether you did one or not.
I honestly, I don't know. I thought I was in compliance with everything. I've paid all the business licenses and everything, and if that becomes an issue, I'm more than happy to square that up.
Do you have any employees?
No, sir, it's just myself and my partner. We only use 1099s.
Okay.
So this would be an administrative home occupation if he doesn't have one?
Okay.
And that's just a simple 8 checkbox list, and probably should stop downstairs and get one and fill it out.
Get shirt up on that, yeah.
Right.
So Jim, while you're up there, is there anything that is relevant to the case as far as space and a home occupation and?
Not as far as the home occupation, again, as long as he gets that permit.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that that one's fairly simple. If you don't have any outward signs of the business, in other words, signs, if you don't have any customers coming to the property, a lot of folks are really just having to register their home as their place of business with the Secretary of State, whether you do all your business on the internet or all you're doing is having your home office there, they still need an address. One thing that is relevant, not related to the home occupation, is this is not in a subdivision subject to deed restrictions.
Okay,
So it's a standalone, that building has been there a long time.
okay, all right, thanks. I saw you nodding, but everything Jim just said as far as employees and lighting and signage and all that?
All correct. I mean, you can see from the state of the property, we don't advertise that. We're strictly a word-of-mouth business-to-business company with relationships that we've already established prior to creation of the business. So the home office is strictly for me running out of my computers and setting up and testing equipment that's shipped to me.
Okay.
So there's no interruption. I would tell you that none of my neighbors would even know what I do for a living. There's part of the reason why we purchased the property is it's nice and it's quiet, and we want it to stay that way.
All right. Further questions?
For Jim, is the permit required for such a thing is called a home occupation permit? That's the actual form that needs to be checked that you were mentioning?
Yes,
It's
and
called a
given there are 8 requirements that need to be met for an administrative home occupation, which doesn't require coming to the Board of Adjustments for a home occupation hearing, and that is, and I can't remember them all, but you can't have any, I think you can have 1 employee outside the house, no outward signs, so no signs posted that that's your place of business, no regular customers coming, no equipment or storage outside the building.
Okay.
And this type of business sounds like it fits within that the administrative home occupation.
Okay, so that is what is required for him to operate out of that facility?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any further questions?
I have one more question.
Yeah,
This is just for me. At no time are you considering renting this property out later down the road or something like that?
No, I have no interest in people I don't know being anywhere near my house. That's part of why we purchased where we purchased.
Well, that's just a major concern of mine. Okay, thank you.
Understood.
okay. All right, thank you, Daniel. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed to the application? Board members, questions for anybody in the audience?
It sounds like he would not be opposed to a condition that it would not be used for a short-term rental, or any rental for that matter, separately.
Okay,
You're shaking your head, is that?
No, I wouldn't bother me at all.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Well, that would require a separate permit anyway, so he'd have to get a conditional use permit for a short-term rental.
Yeah.
STRP certainly would.
Yeah.
It was called, sir.
Correct, yeah. And you can still stipulate it as a condition, but you're correct, that would require coming back for a short-term rental
Right.
permit.
All right,
We could condition it to where he would have to have the proper license, though,
Yes.
for a home business.
yes. Yes, and I think that's what Gretchen is getting the
Right,
wording
that's,
for.
I figured that's what she was pointing at, so.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
Nope.
Daniel, anything else to add? Board, ready for me to close the floor?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to close the floor, open up for general discussion.
I think it's pretty
I
clear.
think we've discussed it.
I think we're all good.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Motion to approve OC 23-032 for an accessory dwelling unit on the property located at 4615 Sadler's Mill Road. The character and objective of the proposed use and the potential impact on the community and the surroundings are appropriate. Potential conditions of approval, the conditional use permit shall only apply to the plan considered at the September 21st, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. I'm going to add to that that the accessory dwelling unit not be used as a rental property, and that an administrative occupation permit is acquired if it has not already been.
Did you get that already?
What's
In
that?
here, today, that it's, shall apply to the plan considered at the September 21st. Did you get that in there?
Yes, that was the first
All
part.
right, we have a
Yes.
motion. Do I have a second?
Mr.
Second.
Chairman, one point of order. The motion says potential conditions of approval. They are conditions of approval.
Okay,
Conditions.
okay.
When we write the staff report, we suggest, so that's why the
Okay.
potential is there.
Right.
And I know you sometimes say that as you're making
Just
those, you're
conditions
correct.
of-
They are conditions.
Thank you, Barry. Did I get
You have a second, yes.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. And Gretchen, if you'd like to read the next one, please.
OC 23-033, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit to allow construction of an accessory structure without a primary structure on the property located at 2584 North Highway 393, LaGrange.
Okay, thank you.
me
Did
to-
you need to recuse yourself?
Yes, do I need to state a reason for that? Just for the, in the
no, I don't
interest
think
of full
so.
disclosure?
I don't think there's a reason or
Okay.
you need to.
All right.
So go ahead and state that you're recusing yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I am recusing myself from this application.
Okay. All right. Board, any questions or problems with Gretchen recusing herself? Barry, do we need to state any reason or do anything?
I don't think so. She just needs to excuse herself, and so she's not involved in the case of the deliberation.
Thank you. We'll come get you at the end of the case. Thank you.
We still have a quorum without her?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. If you'd like to read the next one.
All right. So as she stated, we're looking at a conditional use permit to allow the construction of an accessory structure without a primary structure at 2584 North Highway 393. So we'll stay over in the same part of town. On R2 residential parcel, sits on 2.98 acres of land. Site history: on February 12, 2018, a minor plat was approved to create 2 tracts from one. And you may recognize this property when we get to it, as we had a short-term rental of the very next door property just a few months ago. So as far as this case goes, we have posted this to the website on the 30th. APOs were mailed on the 5th, and it was noticed in the Oldham Era on the 7th. So here is the parcel on 393. This was the property, if you all recall, we had a short-term rental on. They will be using this roadway for access to their property. They do already have an access easement and a road maintenance agreement in place with this neighbor, so there'll be no access being provided out to 393. So they will be accessing their property from this access easement, which you'll see here in a second on the plat that was provided. Here is our zoning map showing it's in an R2. So the applicant's requesting a conditional use to allow a 720 square foot, a 24 by 30 foot accessory structure, a pole barn, to be located on the property that does not have a primary structure at this point. Currently, there is a 4-stall horse barn on the property, but it has a dirt floor and it's really not adequate for what the applicants intend to use the space for. You'll see some pictures of that here in a second. The horse barn will actually be demolished once the single-family residence is built on the same location as the barn. So here's the property. Here is that current horse barn on the property in the rear, and just a little bit closer. and then a few pictures of what the horse barn currently looks like. And you've got these pictures in your staff packet as well that were provided by the applicant. So the applicant state in their justification statement that they plan to utilize this accessory, and I've got dwelling on there, accessory structure while working on the property and for storage of patio furniture and lawn equipment until such time that they build the primary residence, which they would like to begin in mid-2024. So they did provide a little bit of a timetable there for when they do plan to do construction. So here is where they intend to place the pole barn. And then the current shed up here in the front will be demolished for the house. And so they've accounted for the fact to ensure that their accessory structure is in the rear, abiding by all the setbacks that are needed and all that. So that is the plan. And you can see, this might not be it, oh yeah, the access easement that we talked about for the driveway, and they do have a road maintenance agreement that I didn't provide to you, but I do have receipt of it, so. So here's just a few pictures showing where the pole barn will be located and then where that current horse barn is that will be demolished for the future single-family dwelling. And they did provide, it's in your staff packets, a letter kind of looking at their intent and where they are right now. And I'll let them, the applicants, when they come forward, talk about their justification and where they're living now and what they're doing in the whole process. So section 250-030, dealing with accessory uses and structures, talks about shall follow the principal use. And so since there is no principal dwelling, this has to receive review and approval by you all as a conditional use. The proposed accessory structure does meet the remaining standards of that section, 250-030, as well as 260-030, dealing with conditional use standards for accessory structures. And the proposed pole barn will just include a storage area and a bathroom. And just a couple diagrams of what this pole barn will look like, and the construction plans. And then just a couple pictures. These were actually from that previous case we had, just looking down 393. So the property is actually this one here, kind of along the tree line. And then look back up north on 393, northwest. So in summary, the applicant's requesting that conditional use permit to allow the construction of an accessory structure without a primary structure. Conditions of approval. So the conditional use permit shall only apply to the plans presented and considered here at the September 21st, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. There'll be no commercial activity conducted out of the accessory structure, and the accessory structure shall not be occupied as living space. And with that, that concludes my presentation. We received no correspondence from anybody on this case as well. So.
Okay. Questions?
Did you indicate the potential date when the house would be built?
Mid-2024 is when they want to start. Obviously with...
We've had these before where there's no date at all for a plan that sometime.
Yeah, okay. I mean, recently with supply chain and, building costs, people have not been given a timetable. So I told her that it would be nice if we could have one. So they did come up with mid-2024. Okay. And in the justification, there's a letter that talks about, I believe the applicant's son is in the military. He'll be returning home around that same time. So once again, I'll let them talk more about their justification behind it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Refresh my memory again, and you may have just said this, I don't know, but 720, they're proposing 720 square foot, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And that being subordinate to the primary structure means the primary structure has to be what?
Well, so that's for an accessory dwelling unit where it can't be more than 25%. Yeah, so the accessory structure on your staff report, it's got the square footage requirements for accessory structures. So on their parcel of land, which is highlighted there, anywhere from 1 to 2.99 acres, they can have up to 1,800 square feet, and they can actually have 2 accessory structures. So technically, they could keep that horse barn as well, as long as that and the pole barn together wasn't more than 1,800 square feet. Okay. So.
All right. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thanks. Thank you. And if we can have the applicant come forward. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. Thank you so much for hearing our case today.
I can get you to state your name and address, be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We do.
Thank you.
I'm Laura Tapp. This is my husband, Sean Tapp. We currently live at 1003 Cassandra Lane, apartment 206, here in LaGrange, which is Oldham Oaks.
Okay. Thank you. And if you can justify the project, tell us what it is you're trying to do. Anything that he may have left out.
Sure. So we bought this property when it came on the market. We've always wanted to build a home on a little acreage in Oldham County. We've both lived here basically our whole lives, me since 1980, him since 1975. This property came available. We thought this is a great market to go ahead and sell our house, so we did. However, our daughter-in-law and granddaughters have been living with us for the last 14 months. My son is finishing up his time in the military. He's a linguist working with a Green Beret unit right now in Fort Bragg. He will be finished and coming home November of next year. In the meantime, my daughter-in-law is a student full-time at University of Kentucky. She needs us to help her with the granddaughters, who are now 6 and 9 years old at Centerfield Elementary. So they spend 4 nights a week with us, and we get them up and put them on the bus. Well, the sale of the house hindered that a little bit. So we are now renting 2 apartments at Oldham Oaks. They're on the 3rd floor, we're on the 1st in the same building, so the granddaughters can go back and forth and I can put them on the bus every morning. If it weren't for that, we would be building this house right now. So the goal is to go ahead and have the pole barn garage built so that we can move our things out of that dirt floor barn where the groundhog keeps digging the massive holes, and get our grills and the things that we're going to prepare food on later out of a garage that's full of rodents, and put it in a nice garage and get our things out of storage at my parents' house, which is the 1806 Foxborough Road address that you see, so that we can get everything out of their garage and give them their garage space back until we're ready to build next year.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. All right, board. Questions for Sean or Laura?
Nope.
Got a couple of questions. You say your parents are, is that the neighboring address?
My parents are at 1806 Foxborough Road. That was what we put on our application as our mailing, because that was our
okay.
mailing
All right.
address temporarily. We had to move into an Airbnb for 6.5 weeks because the second apartment wasn't ready yet.
Okay. All right, that's the first question. You heard Ryan give potential conditions of approval. Well, matter of fact, there they are. No commercial activity and shall not be used as living space. Are you okay with those two?
We are, and there was only one correction to what he said. I believe he indicated that there was going to be a bathroom put in this garage, and there's not.
Okay. How about water? Is water going to the garage?
No.
Or I should say accessory structure?
No.
All right, so no water, no bathroom, no living space, electricity?
We will have electricity.
Once the house is built,
Okay.
we will run electricity.
All right, is it your intention to tear down, when will you be tearing down the pole barn, or the existing horse barn?
I would assume next summer, when the construction team comes out to build the house, they will tear down the
Okay.
existing structure.
All right, so at some point in time, when you, well, not at some point in time, but when you construct this proposed accessory structure, it is the intent to keep both units, the proposed structure and the horse barns there until you start construction of the house?
Maybe. I mean, the bottom line is, we don't need the horse barn. I would like to get rid of it if I can,
Okay,
but it depends on what we
Okay.
can, if we can give it away and somebody wants it, great.
Yeah, I mean, there's old lumber in there. There's things people may want. There's an old gate.
so it may be there for some period of time, may not, it's just,
Yeah.
your intent is to get rid of the
At
thing?
the most, by next summer, it'll be gone.
The house will be going where the horse
Right.
barn is.
Any other questions? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed to the application? Board members, questions for anybody? I'm going to close the floor, open it up for discussion. Another one pretty cut and dry.
As far as the motion, we want to include the conditions of approval, and since Gretchen's not here, I guess I'll be doing that. Thank you. And
If that's a question, the
anything
answer is
else,
yes.
or any other stipulations, or? sounds like the horse barn's going to disappear when the house is built, which is going to be next year anyway, so I don't know that we need to.
Yeah, and even
Go
what
there.
Ryan said, the regulation, we're okay even if it does stay there
Right.
for however length of time, but.
Right.
But the intent is to get rid of the thing,
Okay.
but yeah, just add the conditions as presented, and I think
Yeah.
we're fine.
Okay.
I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, move to approve the conditional use, or, well, we need to, based upon the application for the conditional use permit to construct an accessory structure without a permanent structure on a property located at 2584 North Highway 393, Oldham County 23033. Move to approve the conditional use because the proposed use is essential or desirable to the community and not in conflict with the elements, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan based on one or more of the following factor, or based on the following factor. Granting the conditional use permit will allow the proper integration into the community of a use specifically named in the zoning regulation. Conditions of approval will include the conditional use permit shall only apply to the plan considered at the September 21st, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. There shall be no commercial activity conducted out of the accessory structure, and the accessory structure shall not be occupied as living space.
All right, very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? It's been approved. Ryan, I guess if you want to run and get Gretchen.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, while we're doing that, can we take a 5-minute break, please?
Can I get a motion?
I make a motion, we take a 5-minute break.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Please turn your mics off. 5-minute break. Actually, hang on. All right, make a motion to
Motion to reconvene?
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Back in session. Please make sure your mics are on. Phones are off. All right, Gretchen, if you want to read the next one, please.
OC 23-035, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use, should say permit, for a non-owner occupied short-term rental property located at 7501 Highway 22, Crestwood.
Okay.
All right, Ryan Fisher, Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning. We're to the short-term rental portion of our docket. So this first one for 7501 West Highway 22 in an R2 residentially zoned area and sits on 0.27 acres of land. No site history on this property. We had all of our proper notifications with being posted to the website on the 30th of August. Adjoining property owner notices were mailed on September 5th, and the public notice appeared in the ERA on the 7th. So here is the property on West Highway 22. Your zoning map. So the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for a non-owner occupied short-term rental property. I think we're all pretty familiar with the regulations for our short-term rental property, so I won't go into much detail on why we're here, but we are asking for a conditional use permit. The responsible party was very close to the property in question, so you can see there on the responsible party map that we're 5-6 minutes, mile and a half down the road, 2 miles at most. And then here is the property in question. I know since you all are always concerned about my safety, these are just Google images because I did not want to stand in the middle of 22. So I did not take these directly. So here is the property, and then looking down 22, westbound, and then eastbound. So in summary, the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for the non-owner occupied short-term rental at 7501 West Highway 22. And our conditions of approval would be that this conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the September 21st, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning short-term rental properties outlined in Oldham County Zoning Regulation Section 250-050, and the applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit before renting the property. With that, that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Questions? All right, thank you.
I have a question. What is that large woods behind the property?
That is, I don't know if that's a portion of, I know over here is the Camp Crestwood is over here to the right. I don't know what is in the rear, if that's another. Okay, so that campground there off Clore Lane. So.
All right, thank you. Yeah, if we could have the applicant.
Thank you again. Good morning again. Get to my presentation. Nope. Sorry.
Looks a lot like the house before.
Here we go. Again, it's Cliff Ashburn with Dinsmore and Scholl, 101 South Fifth Street, Louisville 40202. Here on behalf of Terrence Corporation, which is the property owner. I have Casey Frentz, who's here with me. She is the responsible party, as Ryan mentioned, and does live about 5 minutes from the subject property. So Casey and her father are the two members of Terrence Corporation. They have been renovating the home. So as you can see, I think it's about a 1,300 square foot home. They're on 22. It does have neighbors to the left, but to the rear, it's quite a ways before you get to the next house. And they've spent considerable time and effort trying to kind of modernize the house. I'll call it, make it a little bit more contemporary. In speaking with Casey, and obviously she's here if you have questions of her, when they purchased the house, it was in pretty rough condition. There were some plumbing that had been, I'm not sure the best way to describe it, that had failed. Plumbing that had failed, some other kind of odd choices that had been made inside the home. They're now turning it, if you look on Zillow, it was listed as a 4-bedroom home. It's really a 3-bedroom home. So they've taken one of the rooms that was previously listed as a bedroom, really wasn't appropriate for that, and turned that into a common space, a living room area. Obviously, you can see they painted the brick. They're going to improve the driveway. This is the side of the home. They're adding some landscaping and outdoor patio area, creating a better entryway into that common space in the home. And this is just more of that. They are certainly amenable to complying with all of Oldham County's regulations with regard to short-term rentals, the conditions that were mentioned by the staff. The only comment that Casey has received was a favorable comment from a nearby property owner. Other than that, we've not received any notice of any communications concerning this use. As you all know, there are not a lot of lodging options in Oldham County, and there are certain municipalities in Oldham County that prohibit short-term rentals. So we think this is a good opportunity to take a property that needed some TLC. It's now been given some TLC, and allow it to be used as a place for people who are visiting the county to stay. So I'm happy to take any questions. As I said, Casey is here as well, if you have questions of her.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Okay, thank you. Ryan, did we receive email, phone call? Nothing? Okay. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed to the application? Ryan, if I can get you to come forward again, where are we? What are the proposed regulations for the county is looking at these STRPs going forward, and where are we on those proposed regulations?
Mr. Chairman, I'll interject at this point. There's been a first reading of the ordinance relative to short-term rentals. The second reading will be at the October 2 fiscal court meeting. There is no indication that I'm aware of that it won't pass, but it could obviously not pass, and it is certainly not the law as we sit here today, so it doesn't have any application to this particular application or the one you're going to hear.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Okay, board, questions for anybody else?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Charles, go ahead.
And this is going to be used for a short-term rental?
Yes, this would allow the property to be used for short-term rental. So that's the intent, yes.
So I have a question. I just want to make sure. So Casey Friends actually lives nearby, and she's the owner, and not just a cleaning service or a manager or something like that.
She's a shareholder in Terrence Corporation, as I said, which is the property owner. That's an entity that is her and her father, and she lives, I think the map showed, like 5 minutes away.
Okay.
Lifetime Oldham County resident.
Okay. STRP, talk to me a little bit about, I guess, advertising. We're looking to rent this thing out as much as we can. Mm-hmm. Is this advertising on Airbnb type of a thing? And
yeah. So it would be.
Is there going to be any signage in the front yard?
No. I don't think signage is allowed under the current regulations. I'm not sure about the amendments. Yeah. But no, it would go out on platforms. Casey has experience with other short-term rentals that she manages now. And as you all have probably heard in other cases, I mean, the goal of this is to screen potential tenants, only work with people that you want to work with. And so, Casey's only going to be leasing to people who have 5-star ratings on Airbnb. So these are people who have already rented somewhere else, who've demonstrated they know how to handle themselves in a short-term rental situation. And that's a good, I think, a good screening tool. The other thing that I would mention is this is a relatively small property, and it's a relatively small home. So some of the ills that I know have come up when people lease larger properties, I don't think would really apply here. We just don't have a lot of space. So it's a
I'm sorry,
three-bedroom house.
what did you just say? A lot of the what that we've heard in the past? A lot of the hurdles? Hills that we've heard in the past don't apply here, is what you just said.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just mean, I'm familiar with other short-term rentals, maybe not necessarily in this county, where people are leasing a 8,000 square foot house to 15 people, and some of the concerns that can arise there. This is going to be leased to probably 4 or 6 people at the top end. So we don't think that those concerns are really possible, given some of the characteristics of the property.
Okay. So to that end, actually, you're talking about exactly the questioning or the line of questioning I was going for. A lot of what we've heard, or a lot of opposition to STRPs that we've heard, is the constant turnover of residents coming and going, people that we don't know, people that are not part of the neighborhood, people who don't participate in, I'm using quotes here, participate in the neighborhood. If there's something that's going on, windstorms or whatnot, trees down, these are temporary residents. It's what an STRP is, short-term rental, right? So that's a lot of what we've heard is in opposition are those types of things. I don't want people coming and going out of my neighborhood that I don't know. They're rented by the week, and we have 52 weeks, 52 times. I've got cars coming and going, and people I don't know, and so how? And this is not in the neighborhood, is that correct? We have not heard of any opposition, email or phone call or whatnot to staff. You're telling me it is smaller than other STRP requests, so we eliminate a lot of the need of the parties and a lot of the what comes with larger residents. I don't know. Can you help just address any of the other opposition that we typically hear from STRPs?
So I think that with regard to being part of the neighborhood, now certainly if Casey is here, she's, as I said before, a lifetime Oldham County resident, and she lives 5 minutes from the property. She is invested in this property being kept up, maintained to a high standard. This is not a situation where you have an investor from who knows where just buying a structure and saying, I got a local manager, they'll deal with it. I'm just really concerned about, just getting the checks. So this is somebody who lives in the area, has invested a significant amount already, even before asking for this approval in the property. So I think that's a good attribute of the application. And the fact that it's on 22 and not in the middle of a neighborhood, I do also think is relevant. Ryan's map really showed it better than my presentation can. We have a large wooded area to the back that's not going to be developed. There's a creek that runs by there. So you're not going to have a lot of opportunity really for direct disturbance between anybody who would occupy this property and an adjoining residential property.
Okay.
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
My concern, that looks like a nice little clubhouse, and it's sitting way off in the middle of the woods somewhere. And you're talking about a short-term rental. Are you talking about, that's my concern. What do you mean, are you going to rent it for 6 months or 6 years or what? In terms of?
Well, a short-term rental would allow the property to be leased for less than 30 days. If the right tenant shows up and says, I'd like to lease it for a year, maybe Casey will say, I'm going to go and do that because I'll have it dealt with for a year. I won't have to go over and clean and administer the property on a consistent basis. I will say that in talking with other clients who have long-term and short-term rentals. Sometimes short-term rentals are actually easier on the property because people don't, they don't, well, they treat them more like a hotel room where it's a place to sleep and less like their home. But as far as the clubhouse aspect of your question, this is a picture that I've got up on the screen here from Highway 22. This building is not hidden. It is from the back there. I mean, it doesn't share a rear property line with another home like it, but it's plainly visible from 22.
And I guess my concern is that I've seen some great buildings be turned into wonderful clubhouses, particularly in an area like that. My concern is, I guess it'll be checked on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
And the issue is when you're picking your tenants, there needs to be time in how you pick the people that's going to be there, because I see that being a trouble spot.
Certainly. You know, I don't want to, I do not represent Airbnb, but I will say that platforms like Airbnb, where tenants are rated, are actually very, very useful because it's not a situation where, you know, maybe on VRBO, I don't know if they have a rating system. I think they probably all do at this point. But if you were to have just a private contract with one person and there was no verification about their past behavior in other short-term rentals, you would have the risk that that person can show up and say, you know, look, I've got the money to rent the property, but you don't know anything about me. You don't know if I'm going to be there or not be there. With Airbnb, with the regulations that are in place in Oldham County, I think you reduce that risk. You reduce it through the regulations that already exist by saying, you know, the primary renter has to be 21 years old. I don't think people below 17 can be in there without a parent. So that takes away some of the risk of what you're contemplating. And then, you know, to a certain extent, you do have to look at the applicant and say, this is your property. We don't, you know, and the significant amount of investment that Casey and her family has already made in the property, you know, they want to lease to somebody who's going to treat the property very well so that they don't have repair problems. They don't have extensive cleaning issues. They want this property to be, you know, handled with kid gloves so that the next guest who comes in.
And I guess for me, it's just that short-term rental properties always ring bells off of me. You know, I see a lot of negative stuff. I don't see much good for a short-term rental in my mind. So
Well, hang on, Charles. Yeah, you don't interject, you know, personal testimony or.
I mean, I understand your concern, Mr. Turner. I hear that, and as I said, with the proliferation of short-term rentals, not just in this community but in other communities, there have been bad actors. There have been bad actors. There have been people who rent very large properties, who list them, you know, as a party house, that sort of thing. This is not that. This is a small 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom residence. It's right on 22, and I think the potential for some of the issues that you are concerned about, the risk of that occurring is very low. And, you know, as I said, my client is here. She manages other Airbnbs. She's familiar with how to vet potential tenants, and I fully expect that she'll do that here.
All right. Any other questions?
Is there going to be any sound monitoring equipment as far as sound level, noise level, or any external security cameras involved? So that you can monitor the property when you're not there, actually?
Sure.
We need to get her sworn in and name and address.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
And name and address, please.
My name is Casey Friends, and I live at 113 Rest Cottage Lane in Pewee Valley, Kentucky.
Okay.
In regards to the sound equipment, that's something that I've not necessarily had a reason to install in other units before, but it's something that I'm definitely open to doing if that would be a condition of approval for you all. And then with security cameras, I don't think we have plans for any exterior or interior security cameras. I have utilized them in the past, and it helped with me being off-site, so that's something that I would be looking into installing here, at least for the exterior, so we can monitor how many people are actually going to be in the house at one time.
Okay. We've run into that in the past, so that's why I raised that question.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions? Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I apologize, I may have forgotten where I've left off. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Have I already done this?
Yes.
Yeah. We're past this point.
Okay. Board members, questions for anybody else in the audience?
Just for staff.
Yes.
I think we've established that it is advertised or going to be advertised as a 3-bedroom. Is that correct?
Their short-term rental application, which is in the back of your staff packet, has it listed as 3 bedrooms.
Okay.
So,
And the regulations concerning that, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, is 2 per each bedroom plus 2 more.
plus 4.
I'm sorry, plus 4 more.
Yep,
So up to 10 people could potentially.
correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and that's on.
Because it was mentioned that 4 to 6 would be the maximum, but up to 10 would be allowable in
Okay.
this particular case.
So the way the general provisions in, which are on page 4 in your packet, number 10 is the maximum number of occupants permitted on a STRP property at any one time shall not exceed more than twice the number of sleeping rooms plus 4.
Plus 4.
Their council did just say they'd be willing in a condition of approval to make that lower if you so wish, but.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for anybody? Okay, I'm going to close the floor, open it up for discussion. Any discussion?
So for all of the reasons we've discussed, especially since it's on Highway 22 and not in a neighborhood, this one is different than a lot of the other
I agree.
STRs that we've approved. However, I am concerned about what the outlook is for regulations, that the fiscal court, I'm not sure who's considering coming up with permanent regulations for STRs, and it sounds like there's one more hearing and then we'll have some permanent decision on what STRs are. Given that, is it possible to table an application like this until after those are decided on?
Well, that we certainly could table it. I'm not recommending that, and
Right.
I'm ready to
I guess-
proceed as is.
So
but-
to that point, for the ones that we've already approved, will they be grandfathered in?
Yeah.
Under the new regulation versus
Okay. So they'd be grandfathered.
for,
Okay.
will they be able to apply for additional permit? I mean, it's an annual permit, so they'll be able to apply for an annual permit after that? Or once the rules change, will that take them out of the picture? I know you can't project what the
These are
future's
not
gonna be,
annual
but-
permits, are they?
Yes, so they have to be renewed every year.
Okay.
Every short-term rental permit
But they aren't
expires.
reviewed every year.
They don't what?
They don't come back in front of this body to be
No.
reviewed every year.
No, they don't. They
So
just-
once the decision is made, the decision relates to the property. I think there's a couple points. I mean, I understand that the fiscal court is considering this. The fiscal court doesn't have to adopt this. So I think you have to look at this as if the amendments to the ordinance are not in play at all, as if they don't even exist. So you are looking at it based upon the current regulations, and the application is appropriately before this body. And I think it would be inappropriate for you all to table this until after, there's not a reason. You have the information to make a decision today.
Right.
And to table it, I think would be unfair to the applicant and probably in violation of the law.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
That kind of settles it.
Any other discussion?
So notices have been sent to all the neighbors and no one has had a problem with it. That is very different than many of the STRPs we have seen recently and in the past. So I think that is definitely something to consider in this situation, the location, the size, the scope, and the fact that there is no opposition.
On the flip side, regarding location, just the opposite of what we've seen before, is Highway 22 is a pretty busy road, and I hope visitors understand that they have to be careful pulling out onto Highway 22. So that, that is a concern.
So I thought of that also,
Right.
but even looking at the picture here, there's plenty of opportunity to turn around and you're not backing out on
That's a good
22.
point.
So,
Okay.
but,
Yeah.
but that's a
Right.
good observation, yeah. Okay, anything else? All right, I'm ready for a motion.
Motion to approve OC 23-035 for a conditional use permit for a non-owner occupied short-term rental property located at 7501 West Highway 22 in Crestwood. The character and objectives of the proposed use and the potential impact on the community and the surroundings are appropriate. Conditions of approval. The conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the September 21st, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning short-term rental properties outlined in the Oldham County Zoning Regulations Section 250-050. The applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit before renting the property.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. All, discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. Charles, did you did you vote on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in favor, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. We just didn't hear you. All right, Gretchen, you want to read the last one, please?
OC 23-036, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for a non-owner occupied short-term rental property located at 10,000 Judge Carden Boulevard, Crestwood.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So another short-term rental, but this one's a little bit different than we typically see. So site information for this property at 10,000 Judge Carden Boulevard is R4 residential and sits on 14 acres of land. No site history. Once again, our proper notifications were made by posting to the website, sending adjoining property owner notices, and the public notice appeared in the Oldham area as well. Here is your property in question. So it's the Crestwood Commons Apartments, located right next to 71. Right at exit 14, so R4 residentially zoned property. So the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for a non-owner occupied short-term rental that would be located in this existing multifamily apartment complex, once again known as Crestwood Commons. So the complex plan consists of 9 three-story buildings, 2 different layouts consisting of 180 two-bedroom and 36 three-bedroom units. Also provides amenities such as a clubhouse, swimming pool, basketball court, playground, dog park area. Once again, section 250-050 states that when it's non-owner occupied, it's got to come to you for the conditional use permit. So the short-term rental unit that they would like to start with in this complex, so they would like to use an existing apartment unit that is vacant for short-term rental purposes. Their intent is to begin by using unit 1208. And then if successful, when units are available, they would like to have up to 4 units defined for short-term rental use. So like I said, this is a little bit different than we typically see. So 1 unit initially with up to 4, and beginning with unit 1208. Again, I won't go into all these provisions again since we're pretty familiar with all the non-owner occupied short-term rental regulations. A responsible party map is within our 25-mile radius for the responsible party. As you can see on the map there and included in the staff packet with the short-term rental application. And then just a couple units that I pulled off the website of the different units if you haven't been back there in Crestwood Commons to see the units. just to give you an example of the layouts of the apartments. And then this is the floor plan of the unit that they will be using. I got this off their website, but they also included this in their short-term rental application as well on the floor plan. So in summary, the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for a non-owner occupied short-term rental property at 10,000 Judge Carden Boulevard. And those conditions of approval, as with the last case, would be it shall only apply to the applications considered here today at this September 21st, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all the regulations that are listed within our current short-term rental property ordinance outlined in those Oldham County zoning regulations, section 250-050. And the applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit before renting the property. The only one I did think about putting in there that I didn't was if you wanted to stipulate a number of short-term rental units that they could have. I know they're asking for 4, so that's something to consider, based on their testimony that they want to give, if you want to put that in there. Other than that, that's all I have. I've received no notifications from anybody on this after sending out adjoining property owner notices and posting the Oldham era, so.
You have not.
I have not.
Questions?
The question I'd have would be, it's already a rental property. It's not owner occupied. So where are we between short-term and how long do they normally, is there a requirement they have to rent them for a month or longer?
Yeah, you'll be able to ask them what their current lease agreement is. Our short-term rental property regulations only are concerned with anything less than 30 days.
Less than 30
of
days.
rental.
So a traditional apartment building is expected to rent monthly or longer? In the regulations is what I'm talking about?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is the picture of it right here?
I don't know if this is the particular building that Unit 1208 is in, but I can let them, if they pull up a map of the complex, to show you where Unit 1208 is located, but these are the buildings at the apartment
But you
complex.
say there's 4 individual units.
Jay says, yes, that's Unit 1208. But, yeah. Yeah. He's
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, is that?
Exactly.
There are 4 units that we're talking about.
That they would eventually use on the entire property.
Potentially.
So,
They would
potentially. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're going to be able to give you much better answers at that time.
Well, that's
So remind me of the regulations in terms of the distance for the responsible party.
So if you go in your regulations in the staff packet to page 5, so number 13 is the name and telephone number of the local responsible party who shall reside or be located within 25 miles of the short-term rental property.
And you verified that Tony in Shelbyville is within 25 miles?
Google Maps did.
Okay. Thank you.
So hang on, other parts of Crestwood Commons, are they, this one's vacant, right?
Yeah.
Applicant, he doesn't know.
Okay, I might be calling you back up.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Brian? All right, let's get the applicant up. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just for formality purposes, I'll go ahead and, in addition to myself, we're going to have 2 other individuals who may testify if you want to swear us all in. at the
Okay,
same
let's
time.
get everybody sworn in at the same time.
Are you an attorney or
Do you,
you don't need to be sworn in there? You're an officer of the court.
they do, go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Baxter, Ms. Edgar, good morning. My name is Mike Swansburg. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Swansburg and Smith, located 117 West Main Street here in LaGrange. And if I can, I actually have a document I want to read. I apologize, I did not get this to you all before today. If I may, this is a draft or a proposed motion in order that we have put together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning again. Mr. Fisher did an excellent job, as he always does, in terms of discussing this proposed request that we all have. So he's going to steal a lot, or has already stolen a lot of my thunder here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can roll through as much as I can of this. To the best I can, the motion that is drafted in front of you tries to parallel along with the presentation here. And I hope it also addresses a number of the questions and concerns that you all have raised as we actually were able to hear in the previous presentation, as well as raised this morning as part of this presentation as well. So I hope to be able to answer all those questions for you. What is Crestwood Commons is, again, as already been discussed, is an amenity plus apartment complex located just off Highway 329, north of I-71 in Oldham County. It's the red triangle that you see there just off of I-71 that we've already talked about. As Mr. Fisher already identified, it currently sits on property zoned as R4. It has 216 total units, each of which is subdivided into either a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom model. And as Mr. Fisher already pointed out, the 2-bedroom model to you, but for your benefit, I've gone ahead and identified in this slide both the 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom floor models of the current configuration at the complex. I'm not going to dwell on the comprehensive ordinance, at least for the first two sections, as has already been discussed, and you all are more than familiar with that. The third section at the bottom, though, I do want to talk about really quickly. Oldham County Comprehensive Ordinance Section 260-010 provides that before a conditional use permit is granted, the Board of Adjustments shall find the proposed use to be essential or desirable to the community and not in conflict with the elements and objectives of the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan. And so along those lines, just initially as part of the ask, Crestwood Commons, again, as we talked about, there are 4 potential units that we are talking about ultimately, but as it currently sits, there is 1 unit right now, as we've identified, that is vacant. That is the model apartment for Crestwood Commons that is presently used for prospective residents who want to come in and take a look at the property to see about the benefits of living in Crestwood Commons. It is fully furnished, and it is vacant in the absence of any opportunity to show it off to someone who may be coming in as a prospective resident. That right now is the property, the specific unit that we are talking about using currently, although the applicant does want to receive, or is asking respectfully for potential approval of up to 4 units, which could be both, my understanding, both the 2-bedroom and potentially 3-bedroom units if they are available at the time. And that is how we're looking at this application again. So there's currently 1 unit that is actually currently vacant. That's the model apartment that's fully furnished. That would be, and I'm going to have Ms. Boer come here and talk for a second, really about how that property is currently being used, and then what they expect to be doing in terms of juggling that with prospective applicants or individuals who might be coming here on a temporary or short-term basis. So if Ms. Boer, if you want to come up and just talk about that, the relationship between the unit as it currently stands and how you all would use that on a regular basis.
Yeah. So currently, when I have been a part of
Name and address, please.
Sorry. Tony Boer, 1074 Morning Glory Lane, Shelbyville, Kentucky. When I have been a part of apartments before that have been used for short-term rentals, it looks a little bit different than when we see single-family homes. And so with that, these are oftentimes locals that are in transition if they're building a home themselves, or if they're moving and they need to stay for a week or 2 or a few days, or if they have family in town for an event, just like the people who were before us with the ADU. So that's usually what we're seeing with apartment units that are used as short-term rentals. And they also get to use the amenities that are at the apartment complex. Obviously, as you all know, I manage several here in Oldham County, so I'm here often and check in on the properties that I manage and make sure that everything's being run appropriately, and vetting the guests who are coming to these properties, making sure that they, as said before, have good ratings, and that they're the appropriate type of guests for this. It's a pretty luxury apartment, so we want to keep it that way.
So again, the initial ask here is that the Board of Adjustments respectfully grant the conditional use permit to use that model apartment as I talked about, and up to 3 additional units as short-term rental properties. I mentioned a minute ago about the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan and how that comes into play as part of the board's consideration of this request. And what I want to go ahead and point out in terms of component parts of the comprehensive plan that we believe are applicable here, for example, land use objective LU-2-4 sub 4 states that the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan provides, quote, encourages higher density housing to be located near transit services and or major employment centers. The complex that is currently where the apartments are located is adjacent to a property that many of us are aware already that Baptist Health has proposed to develop a hospital campus off of I-71, which will inevitably, we believe, employ individuals like traveling nurses, other transient medical employees who may be coming and going on a very short-term basis and may be in need of temporary residential options. We believe that this is going to be a benefit to that proposal by virtue of giving people an option adjacent to that property so that if a medical employee is coming to work at the facility and if a short term, they may be able to literally go next door and be able to have a short-term residential option so they can go back and forth. Additionally, in terms of it being located near transit services, as I mentioned, it is less than a mile. It's right off I-71 heading south and north, which the southern part, as we're all more than well aware, is being widened right now to accommodate 3 lanes of traffic heading down toward Louisville due to greater traffic needs at this point. So we believe it comports with that part of the comprehensive plan. Additionally, another part of the comprehensive plan that we believe it comports with is land use objective LU-2-3 sub 3, which states that the ordinances should, quote, provide incentives to encourage private sector investment in the development of a variety of housing types. And what we would submit here is that the proposed conditional use would provide a housing option that's not readily available in the Crestwood area. By allowing Crestwood Commons to utilize up to the 4 units as we've talked about, including the 1 model apartment as I mentioned for this purpose, Crestwood would realize a benefit either through the provision of temporary shelter for residents who are displaced from their regular homes. I actually wrote here due to unforeseen events, but serendipitously, there was an application earlier about some individuals who were actually a foreseeable event where they might actually end up having to stay in an Airbnb, as they indicated in their testimony to you all. And that would also be a need or an opportunity for someone to utilize this particular space, if it's not just for flood or fire, but potentially for renovations to their home, or, as was indicated here, complete revitalization of the property for future purposes. In addition to, of course, just being a temporary resting point for individuals traveling along the corridor who would otherwise have to travel either into LaGrange to the north or to Louisville to the south. So we believe that that is consistent with land use objective LU-2-3. There's a couple other more practical considerations that we wanted to talk about. I'm going to make a statement here, and then I want Ms. Boer to come back up and talk about them to the extent that there's additional testimony that needs to be done here. But one of the issues, in addition to her being available within the 25-mile radius that we talked about, Crestwood Commons currently employs at least 2 individuals who actually live in the complex, one of them being the construction manager, who at this point I believe is literally on top of the model unit. So his apartment is actually on top of the model unit. And then who's the one on the bottom? What's that? The leasing manager. The leasing manager of the property actually lives in the apartment below the model apartment. So in addition to Ms. Boer being available, we would submit to you that there are individuals who have significant input in terms of needing to make repairs to or to be able to address any situations that arise from the short-term rental property, who are actually on site, who are going to be able to actively participate in those, and to the extent necessary would be able to either remediate or report and resolve any issues that might be brought. To that point, Crestwood Commons, of course, has an interest in maintaining the integrity of each of its short-term rental agreements as part of this, because it has employees who live there and are going to be impacted potentially by any adverse issues raised as a result of that short-term property. So again, they've got an incentive to actually make sure that this stays on the up and up and that they're keeping all their T's crossed and I's dotted as part of this, because it could impact them in other contexts. I want to make sure that that's pointed out as well. And we talked about before, and the previous applications is a good illustration and point, although the board approved that as well. In this case, we're talking about an apartment complex, which is already, as was discussed, is already filled with individuals who are there on a leasing basis or a rental basis as it is. The regulation provides that short-term rentals are less than 30 days. They can ostensibly rent to people at this point now for 31 days if they wanted to, and that would not qualify as a short-term rental, but there's no reasonable expectation for anybody who is currently within the complex of people beside them being there for long periods of time, because it is by nature a rental community. And so if you are currently in one unit and the unit next to you is an Airbnb, you should not, in this context, have a reasonable expectation that the people in that unit are going to be there for a long period of time, because you yourself are not going to be there or not anticipated to be there for a long period of time. And so we would submit to you that this is an entirely appropriate venue for this type of request. Ms. Boer, you touched on just very briefly about property management, but I would like to just, in terms of the context of how the property is managed and the expectation from you all of the applications, how you might vet them, et cetera, if you don't mind coming up and talking about that. I know that was a question that came up before, and if we could have Ms. Boer testify to that, so you all have that information as well, please.
So the unit that we're currently talking about is a 2-bedroom, so that would be 4 people. We haven't decided yet if we're going to include a sleeper sofa. Because the unit is already furnished, I don't think it's a sleeper sofa currently, so it would be 4 people. There's queen beds in each of the 2 bedrooms that are currently there. And I think that we would continue that with the other units that are 2 bedrooms, and then obviously with the 3-bedroom, it would be 3 beds. Airbnb does a lot of the vetting for us. Identity verification is always done through Airbnb. We tend to not rent below 25-year-olds. I think, as I've spoken before, the Kentucky Department for Tourism has done studies that show even the travelers coming through here are 42 and a half years of age and older, with a general average income of over $100,000. That's our average for tourists that we're seeing in the area. So again, that just shows a more distinguished and sophisticated group of people who are traveling. But with this being an apartment with already, people who are renting, I think the amenities are something that guests would love on their short-term stay, and just recognizing the sorts of people that are coming to the area and what they're coming here for, and asking them questions. I do guest services when they inquire about renting the property. I ask them questions of what brings them here. Obviously, if they mention a party or any event, I tell them that we're not the appropriate place for them, and just kind of go from there with communication with guests and what they're looking for and what kind of stay they're looking for. Because if it's not the right fit, I'm the one that points that out, that I don't think this property is the right fit for you.
So again, the final ask, and I already talked about this before, but the final ask is, again, given all the points we've already discussed, we respectfully ask the Board of Adjustments to grant the applicant's application for a conditional use permit, allowing it to use up to 4 apartment units, including the one existing model apartment, as I've discussed, as short-term rental properties consistent with both the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan and the Oldham County zoning ordinance. And at this time, we would be more than happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Well, we're looking at an apartment building that's potentially a hotel. What is the minimum amount of days you will be renting apartments in these units? Are we looking at single night, 2-night, 5-night? What kind of ask are you looking at there?
Generally, we don't set a minimum night because we do have business travelers that travel through the area, especially up and down 71. So they may be here just for a business meeting at one of the hospitals or, whatever it is that they're here for. So we could set a minimum night, but typically we don't. Just for the other transient people who, they're coming up and down 71, they might just need a one-night stay to rest and get back on the road tomorrow. So I normally typically don't set a minimum night stay, but I'm open to that if that's necessary.
What's the closest hotel to that site?
LaGrange or Louisville.
Okay.
So it's kind of a mid-stop for them.
Okay. Other questions?
I have to be honest, it took me a minute to wrap my head around what exactly is being asked. It's the owner of this complex that is asking to do this, correct? It's the owner of Crestwood Commons Apartments, who is the applicant, who is asking for this short-term rental property. This isn't anybody purchasing one of these and then renting it out.
No.
This is the actual owner of the building.
That's correct.
So what is the benefit? I mean, I'm just curious what the benefit to the owner that, and why would it benefit if it were me, I'm saying, why would it benefit me to own a property where I can have long-term residents who have signed a lease agreement and who know the expectations of the complex, as opposed to a short-term rental property? Is it just the potential to make more, which is fine, it's a commercial endeavor, I mean, that's absolutely what the purpose of it is, or is there another reason that I'm missing?
Sure, I'm Patrick Pollard, 3402 Shadydale Boulevard in LaGrange, and I am one of the owners of the property. The idea came from, we have this full-time model that sits vacant 7 days a week. For us, it was an idea to say, okay, it's furnished, this would give us an opportunity to use it for the short-term rental, but also in conjunction, allowing people that may be prospectively looking to live there, that they could get a tour as well. So Tony is going to be actually managing the short-term rental aspect of it. We have a full-time leasing manager on site. He's been with us the whole 3 years that we've been renting units. We didn't want to dump that on him. We wanted somebody that could also especially watch this. So we kind of got two folks on it. And that's really where the idea came from. We were aware we could do 30-day rentals. We had always thought eventually, maybe with insurance companies and such, that they could use them as rentals. This gave us the flexibility to do it and do it legally. So that's why we came forth. Right now, we don't have 3 other units to use, but my question to the staff was, as opposed to keep coming back, can I just ask up front, here's my intentions, and here's what we want to do. But the majority of the units, there's 216 total, will be long-term leases.
Okay.
And our current minimum lease is 12 months.
Another question.
Sure.
For the person, I mentioned the lease agreement, will the person who is renting the short-term unit have the same stipulations for the use of the amenities as a resident would have?
Yes.
According to a lease agreement, is it going to be a similar agreement to?
It'll be different because we will follow the short term. Some of the rules are different, because they're not going to be living there 12 months, but the rules would probably actually be stricter for those that are staying on a nightly basis.
That's actually my question. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I have a question for the applicant. Would the applicant consider approval for just the 1 unit right now and see how that goes and come back for the other 3?
At this time, I'd prefer to request the 4 units. And it's the option. This is what we asked staff up front to just say, what's the best route to do? And they said, go ahead and ask this up front.
So if we only approved 1 with you, would you withdraw the application, or would you want the application still approved?
The request would be for 4. I'll leave it at that. That's for 4. Yeah. Up to 4.
I have another question. I don't know if it's for the applicant or for anyone. The traffic at the intersection of 329 and 71 is dangerous right now. I came through there this morning, and people are...
Be careful with any personal...
So my question is there a plan for signals or traffic controls of some form at the intersection of 329 and 71?
That's not him.
I can attempt to answer this. Obviously, I don't work for KYTC or anything like that, but involved in some other projects that all talk about that intersection. So KYTC does have plans, obviously, to widen 71, to, I believe, install a stoplight at exit 14 eventually, and there'll be some other improvements in that area. Once again, don't work for KYTC, but that has.
So you have no
come up
feel for timing on
right,
stoplights?
No timing on any of those.
Okay. Patrick, if I can get you to come back up. Very interesting concept here. So I think, and I've got a lot of things buzzing around in my head, so I've got to collect all my thoughts here. But you had, or in testimony was given, I know traveling nurses was one. Gretchen had asked why are you doing this versus long-term rental, all the other 260 or whatever it is that you have. And I understand you said that, well, this one's a model unit, so it stays empty, and this gives us the flexibility to do something with that one. Correct. And heck, let's go ahead and ask for 4 and kind of shuffle this around, and today this is a model, tomorrow that's a model, and it just gives us a lot of flexibility. So my question, I guess, is going back to Gretchen's question, why? Very interesting, and that's what I said, I got to collect my thoughts on this. Traveling nurses was an answer for a why. What other short-term, and maybe this, I don't even know this is an appropriate question, I got to collect my thoughts, but what other short-term avenues? I think it was also said that for the unforeseen events, fire, storm, whatever, this gives them relief or place to live while something's happening there. Are those the 2 primary thoughts going through your head as to your?
That's primarily what we were thinking. With the insurance work, we only have 1 furnished unit. So everyone else that moves in, it's their stuff. They're living, with their furniture and such. If we're going to open up more units for insurance use, it's not every day we have that. So dispersing it intermittently with the short-term Airbnb rentals would give us a purpose to have, if we chose to go that route, to use the other 3 units for that. But obviously, we would have to go ahead and furnish 3 other units, which we currently do not have.
Well, and I guess this also gives you STRP. That's what you're asking for, up to 4 STRPs for PGA and for this and that. This, correct. Like everybody else that's doing STRP, this gives you that opportunity.
Yes, and
that's okay.
And
that's
on
why.
top of it, we want. We actually have 3 staff that live in the project. Adding Tony as an additional layer, it is of utmost importance for us to keep this community safe, in good order for all the residents that live there, because 4 is a very small percentage of what the whole complex is.
I'm getting a little mixed signals about up to 4. You've said up to 4. So you haven't even identified, it's these 4 that we're talking about. I've identified this 1, but we're asking for up to 4. It could be anywhere, and they're unidentified at this point.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I have a question for you or for staff. Given that area of the intersection of 329 and exit 14 and 71, are there any zoning changes that permit or are contemplated or discussed with respect to any hotels in that area?
Yeah, I don't know if I quite understand your question, but I mean, the nearby development that has been proposed does have hotel options in it. But no, I mean, and that would require, that's a zoning change, but that's specifically for that proposed development that.
And so, Member Furco, the other point here, again, and I know it's difficult, but you're asking a question about what might happen in the future. And there is a proposal that is a mixed-use proposal. I think it's a PUD, if I understood correctly. But it's a mixed-use proposal for the other 2 corners of 329 across the interstate. That also includes areas around the property that Mr. Pollard is here about today, I think. But that has not been even heard by the Planning Commission. And it's a difficult situation we find ourselves in because, if we were able to say, this is what we know is coming, then that would have impact on your decision. But like the situation with the adoption of the new ordinance as it relates to short-term rentals, there's no guarantee that ever comes. there's no guarantee that the short-term rental situation ever changes. So you're kind of having to look at this at this particular moment based upon what the situation is, and it's sort of like testifying, right? You can't bring in evidence of things that you would like to have happen or you think should happen when there's no evidence that it necessarily will happen. I know that's a long answer.
No, that's
for me,
helpful. Thank you.
But it is a difficult, and I certainly understand you're trying to be forward thinking, and that's what everybody wants us to be. But until we know, you can't really factor that into the decision today.
Got it. Thank you.
Ryan, well, go ahead, Tony.
I just want to also point out, if 1 to 4 of these units were rented as a long-term rental, those people would be, as part of the traffic that you have mentioned, they would be living there, they'd be coming and going as their residents, as we do at our own homes. But with the short-term rental, those occupancy rates are 50 to 60%. So this is less traffic in that general area through that parking lot and the whole, ensemble of this particular area. So this is not going to be 100% occupied as it would if it were a typical long-term rental as a residence.
Thank you.
Ryan, question for you and Barry, maybe. So what separates STRP from a hotel, and go the opposite direction? What if we identify 4 units and we say, well, this one, this one, this one, this one, these are our 4 STRPs. Do we have to identify the 4, right? Because, or today it's these 4, tomorrow it's these 4.
I think it's the minimum number. It's just the number only 4, that in my mind.
So today we're doing 1. He's asking for up to 4. Yeah. So the other 3, what if they're used for long-term rentals? What if he identifies these 4 are the STRPs a year from now, and all of a sudden those 4 become long-term rentals? So 2 questions. What separates this from a hotel? And then, for real short-term rental, and then go the opposite. When do you cross the line, or what happens if you cross the line and those identified as STRPs become long-term rentals? I don't know. Do we even have to consider these things?
So I guess to answer the difference between hotel and motel, obviously zoning, is going to be only allow a hotel and a motel in certain zoned areas. When I first looked at this case, and it's difficult to kind of wrap your head around, and it's not something that we see a lot. The one case that I really thought it was familiar with was probably 8 months ago, where the applicant wanted to do the storage container homes and initially had asked for 1 up to 3. And I believe the approval that came through that day was for you can have up to 3, but initially she was just going to do 1. So what my thinking on this was, if the CUP is asked for with 4 and you all grant that today, they would still have to come in with an individual short-term rental property application for a particular unit at that time. So if it's approved today, they come in tomorrow and say, okay, unit 1208, we want to get a short-term rental permit on. We issue that, and then when they decide unit 1315 is going to be a short-term rental, they come in with an application for that specific unit, and then that permit is good till the end of the year. If they choose to renew that at the end of the year or they let it lapse, the question, I guess, comes in, and this may be one for Mr. Baxter, would be if they get that conditional use permit for 4, and then our regulations do change, what happens with that because it is in a residentially zoned area?
After that application has expired.
Right.
Well, if the application expires, they're going to have to come back in under the new ordinance. So I think that the one thing that I think becomes a little difficult is if there's 4 units and they identify 4 units and they use the 4 units, then it's grandfathered in. If say they use 2 units and don't use 2 units during the course of the year, or they rent them out as long-term rentals, I think those are likely going to be an issue where the conditional use permit is going to lapse. As it relates to those 2, they're down to 2 at that point. So, there's a business decision that's got to get made by Mr. Pollard and his property manager about how they do this, because if they're going to leave something if they've identified something as one of the units, and then they rent it long-term, and there's not another application put in for the 4 units before the end of the year, then they're down to 3 units. Or they might be down to 2 units, so.
What I've recognized in other areas, you can keep that short-term rental permit in use even if it did turn into a long-term rental. So if he did rent that unit for a year to someone, he could still keep his conditional use permit in place as a placeholder for when.
As long as he files the application.
Yes, correct.
As long as you file the application, but still renting it as long-term. As long as that application's on file for STRP as a placeholder.
So then he has an option to do short-term.
That's how you keep your 4.
I guess the question is, the other 3 right now, they're long-terms. Because you haven't identified them, they're probably being used as long-term rentals, I'm guessing?
So does that also mean if this is approved up to 4, soon he would have to come in with that application for 3 unidentified units
Well,
to maintain that placeholder?
as I understand the conditional use permit regulations, if you don't exercise the conditional use permit within, I think it's 12 months, isn't it, Ryan? If you don't exercise it within 12 months, then the permit lapses.
Okay.
So in other words, and the other part that's a little confusing here is that the conditional use permit is going to be placed of record. So I'm not sure how you write the conditional use permit, but it gets placed of record in the county clerk's office indicating that there's a conditional use of up to 4 units on this particular piece of property. So if they don't come in and identify and say, these are the ones we're going to use, and file the short-term rental application within 12 months of approval, then let's say they filed 2 and not 4. We'd be down to 2 units.
You lose 2.
They would lose 2.
I think another thing to consider is when you're putting a short-term rental together, it's down to the pizza cutter. There's silverware, coffee pots, sheets, beds, wall hangings, all the things that you would furnish a home with, that you're used to having, to use, spatulas and all the things. So I think when Patrick goes to choose these 4 units, this isn't going to be like a fly by the seat of his pants decision that each unit would be chosen to use as a long-term, short-term rental, because he's not going to want to move couches out and, silverware and furniture and all the things out every time the wind blows. So just thinking about the short-term rental use long-term, that's a lot of expense that Patrick is going to have to go through to supply all of those things, as well as, what he wants for the purpose of the property to look like for his investment.
I have a question for Patrick. Are the other 3 units constructed yet?
The project is complete, yes.
Okay.
Everything's done at this point.
So I don't know why it's bothering me a little bit, because I don't think it really matters. But there's something that's bothering me, that they haven't been identified. I think I'm completely on board with the project, but knowing that I don't know where these other 3 are going to be, in a year from now, today it's these 3, and a year from now, we're going to scrap these 3, and it's one over here, and one over here, and one over here. Just not knowing where these STRPs are going to be, I don't know, I've got some hesitation about that.
Well, and I'll explain part of the reason behind this too. I will reiterate what Tony said. I have no desire to have our staff moving couches and chairs and everything in and out of different apartments. Once we identify what it will be, it'll be those units. I mean, there would be no... The 2 bedrooms are the 2 bedrooms, the 3 bedrooms are the 3 bedrooms. There's really no difference in the units themselves. So the reason I asked for the 4 was just because I asked Jim the question and Ryan of, okay, I've got 1 available that I would do this to today. But there's always turnover in the complex. So if I need to go ahead and identify, I would be willing to do that.
Well, and I think to your point, at this point, you have not identified units. But when you do identify a unit, you have to furnish it.
100%.
And I think to address your concern, the way I'm understanding this is once they identify a unit and they file the short-term rental application, that's the unit. There's not going to be moving around because they've identified. So as a condition of approval, it could be indicated that it would be this one unit that they're asking for, plus 3 to be identified, that will become the short-term rentals once the short-term rental application is filed.
But then the following year, after that application has expired, we are still saying if you've already identified these 4 units, these will always remain the 4 units that are identified as the STRPs, even after the application,
That would be my interpretation of what's being proposed.
I would be fine to commit to that.
Let me
Again,
ask
there's no
this.
objection.
Do each of these, first of all, this is a piece of property. The apartment complex is on a piece of property. Each individual unit, a CUP runs with the property, not individual units. So if we're asking for an STRP we're in weird territory here, but very interesting. All right, more questions?
You mentioned there's a lot of turnover in the complex. And you don't have to qualify a lot, but I'm just saying there is a turnover in the complex already.
Well, we're new. I mean, the last buildings were just finished within the last 6 months, maybe even 4 months. But we require a 1-year lease. So of 216 units, yes, there will be turnover, as any complex would have.
So I have a question for staff, I guess, or council. So we have a detailed motion submitted by council for the applicant that has 14 items in the motion to approve. And I want to make sure that staff has reviewed all 14 of those items in the motion, and that there aren't any issues with respect to that motion.
We just got it this morning, as you did, so I haven't reviewed it. Been listening to the hearing. If you want to take a short recess so we can look at it. What I always tell the board or the planning commission is you can use this as part of your motion. You can accept all of it or parts of it as desired, the ones that fit. This is a proposed motion by the applicant.
Right.
Which is helpful. It gets you a start.
Yes.
So if you really want to concentrate on this, I think we should take a short recess, sit in place, read it, give us time to look at it as well, and Mr. Baxter.
But technically, we don't have to use it at all.
You don't.
I know.
That's correct. If you don't want to use any of it, you can say thanks for submitting it and not use any of it.
Okay.
I'm sorry I had to step out. Did you already go through those in favor?
I have
or
not,
haven't got that
getting
yet?
ready to do that.
Got it. So why don't you do that before you take a...
I agree, yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I will tell you, at about 11:15, I've got probably, I need a 10-minute break anyway. I've got a phone call I have to take.
Okay. Before I hear those in favor, those opposed, any other questions? Okay, all right, hang on one second, ma'am. Okay, are you in favor of the application? Okay. Are opposed to the application? Okay. We have not heard any email or phone calls or anything else. Okay, yes, ma'am, you may come forward now. And let's get you sworn in, state your name and address.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, name and address, please.
Karen Beltley, 4622 Echo Valley Drive, Crestwood.
Karen or Carol?
Karen.
Karen, okay.
Joining property.
Okay,
Sorry, joining property.
all right.
My property is right behind. It's 25 feet off these apartments.
It's still a little hard to hear you.
It's 25 feet off these apartments.
Okay.
I opposed this to start with and then came around because I was sold that it was for apartments, long-term. Now we're talking about changing it into transient situation. I don't believe that's appropriate for the area. We already have so much traffic there, and it is going to be, I also am on 71, so I was at the meeting on the virtual Zoom for that the other night. There will be traffic lights there. There is going to be some changes to that area. Also, up on the other part of it, on the other side of the highway, there's a huge proposed project, which is supposed to include three hotels or motels. So I don't see any need for this. It changes the whole area. I don't really want a lot of people transient in and out. I don't think any of the neighbors do too. We agreed to the apartments thinking they were long-term, single-family units. This is not long-term, single-family units. This is who knows who. And I don't believe that's right. You're gonna rent for one night. You're turning it into a hotel. There's no doubt about that. We didn't sign up for that. I eventually agreed that the apartments would be good because we need single-family housing. But this is not single-family housing, and I don't believe that this is proper for the area or for the residents. It's especially not proper for me. With being 25 feet off of it, I have no idea who any of those people are. And if you don't have a stake in the building, you're not there for 12 months, you're there for a night, that could lead to all kinds of problems. So I am opposed to it, and I know all the neighbors are too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hang on, Karen. Any questions for Karen before she sits?
Were notices sent out to the residents? I mean, you
Yes,
mentioned
I
that-
received it. It said I
All
could
right.
show up here and object if I wanted to.
I'm sorry.
It said I could come here and object to this.
Okay. And you mentioned that all the other residents are opposed. Is there anybody else that has written
No,
any?
no, he has
nothing?
not received
I've
anything
just
else.
talked to my neighbors and stuff. I don't actually live on the back is my farm, and I live at the front of it, which is on Echo
I'm
Valley
sorry.
Drive.
So you spoke to residents of the apartment complex?
No, of the area.
Homeowners.
Homeowners,
Residents.
yes.
Okay, and they were notified as well?
Adjacent
Residents outside-
property owners.
Adjacent, outside of the
Well,
the
there are
complex.
only
Okay,
two
that was my
adjacent.
question.
There's only a couple of us that are adjacent because they're farms.
So those are the two that object? Is that what those two that are adjacent?
Well, I think a lot of the people in
Well-
the area that I've spoken to object to the idea of that. Brownsboro is a disaster right now. And there's just so much traffic and all of these things that are being proposed. The interstate is going to be torn up and all those bridges are going to be redone. There are hotels proposed for the other side of the bridge. And I don't see the need for this at all. There's going to be plenty of hotels, believe me, in that area. They showed that in the Oldham era. They had the complete package drawn out. There was a big article in there. And it is going to be houses, motels, anything you can think of is going to be over there. So why do we bring it over to Brownsboro? Brownsboro goes down to that single lane highway, and that's all they're proposing. It will have a turn lane, an extra one. It will have a light, because I attended the Zoom meeting the other night. But our end of it is just a little community. The other side has the potential for that, as a four-way highway. All the entrances could be, and Walmart and everything else is up there. But when you come this way, there's no potential for all this traffic and everything. So bringing more, we're going to have the hospital. So bringing more traffic into that just seems absurd. I mean, we've just overrun. It's a little bitty town. And it doesn't seem appropriate at all, especially when we're going to have plenty of hotels on the other side of the road. There's plenty in LaGrange. There's plenty at the next exit down. There is all kinds of hotels. So why would you want to stop at a resident apartment building for the night? It just doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing nobody else, and yes, here in a minute, I do want to take a short recess so we can read through this, but before I do that, seeing nobody else here, there's no other opposition, we haven't, staff hasn't gotten any. Let's give you 5 minutes, let's go ahead and do the rebuttal period, and then we'll take a short recess. So 5 minutes for a rebuttal, and And then, ma'am, you'll also have 5 minutes following his 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if I can, there's a couple of points I want to talk about really briefly, obviously, about this. First one being, of course, I have a bit of a concern standing here listening to an individual coming in talking about what conversations she might have had with other people, but no one has in fact been identified. And I'm not sure who these people are. If I stood here and told you that we've had multiple conversations with people who support this project, I wouldn't expect you to in fact rely upon that as a basis for you to approve it. I would expect to actually give you proof of who those people are. So I don't know who they are in terms of opposition, other than who the individual has already spoken today. So I do have a concern about that as being a basis upon which this body would consider this particular issue. The other part that I want to talk about specifically is about the project, and I alluded to this in my original presentation. Part of the proposal that we're talking about is going to include a massive hospital campus on the north side of I-71 on 329. That is going to be adjacent to the property we are talking about. It's not just the mixed-use property on the south side that we've talked about. There is going to be this massive hospital complex as part of the proposal on the north side, which is, again, why we're talking about being advantageous for individuals who are going to be employed at that facility to potentially use our service as an option for them for temporary residency. And so it's not going to be small. Well, the proposal is not to keep it farmland or undeveloped land for any long period of time. The proposal is to develop it, and to develop it, quite frankly, into a pretty significant property.
Is it possible for you that, to the point you're making right now, is it possible for you to show us on the map where that hospital would be relative to this property so we know what you're talking about?
I can do my best to tell you approximately what we're talking about. I am not privy to the specific proposal itself in terms of the actual parcels, but Patrick, if you're...
Let's table that just for a second, and if you can continue with the rebuttal.
So I guess, the concern I've got on that front, of course, is that what we're talking about here is ultimately a property that's going to be developed anyway. And this is not going to, although ideally, for individuals who might be opposed to this, who again, I don't know who they are, that might be ideal to leave it undeveloped and to have it look like farmland, but that's not ultimately the long-term vision for the property that we're talking about surrounding this area. What we're talking about at this point is giving the applicant the flexibility to put together an option for individuals who are presently going to be moving along I-71 and who we anticipate at some point might be part of a large employment complex that is going to be adjacent to our property. What we believe that comports with ultimately the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan, which is, again, from our perspective, a basis upon which you all should make a decision. And that's what we've proposed as part of the motion. So again, what we're talking about here really is having the flexibility to do something. We've talked about having up to 4 units to do this, and there's been testimony about the fact that there could be 1 unit occupied at one time, there could be 2, there could be 3, obviously given with permits being applied for and approved at that point. But what we're talking about here is ultimately a complex of 216 total units that presently exist. And what we're only asking for is up to 4 of those 216 to be used for this purpose, not for the remaining units in any way, shape, or form. And so if anyone's got any further questions, I'd be happy to do that. But that would, I would say, in rebuttal to the points that were made in opposition to us at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was one more point. Thank you for bringing this up. There was a discussion very briefly about traffic, and that Kentucky Department of Transportation is talking about putting in traffic lights. I know that's been a concern about that. From our perspective, if you actually put in the traffic, either traffic lights or turn signals or whatever else is going to be there, from our perspective, that's actually beneficial. Because it's going to help alleviate the concerns we talk about, the danger of that particular intersection. So it's only a good thing as far as we're concerned about that type of those types of infrastructure going into place. If Kentucky Department of Transportation wants to do that, then as far as we're concerned, that's a good thing for us and a good thing for that area. So thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, if you'd like to have 5 minutes for time of rebuttal. Okay. All right. Board. Yeah, Jim, did you have something?
Well, I don't know if you want to discuss the hospital.
I just want to see where it's at on the
It is
map.
immediately in front of these apartments, and it is part of a bigger project. They are currently going through the zoning process, which is going to take probably about 6 months. My from what I've heard and talking with the people from the hospital, they haven't even built it yet. So building a hospital this magnitude doesn't go up overnight. I mean, I think you're 4 years before you even see a hospital there.
So on the map, it would be right where those
Right in front of it,
storage facilities are, kind of right
Between the storage facilities and the apartments.
in the
Yep.
properties.
Mhm.
Okay.
On Carden Boulevard.
What
So-
did you say, how many years did you just say that you expect it, or?
Being realistic about how long it takes to get things approved and construction plans and everything, I don't believe that the hospital will be open before 4 years.
Oh, okay.
I mean, again, it's not even been approved yet. They don't even own the land yet. They're going through a zoning process that's going to take 6 months, and then construction plans, and then, so it isn't an immediate need.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
And then, I'm sorry I had to step out again, but the discussion about traffic signals, I mean, none of that is coming soon either. So, and it is somewhat, doesn't carry a whole lot of weight only because people are coming in and out of the apartments already anyway. So I don't know that a traffic signal is going to help you make a determination on this because, again, there's no plan for widening. That won't happen before 329 gets widened. And that, again, is probably longer than the hospital.
All right. No, ma'am, not at this time. We'll give you an opportunity here shortly. Board, would like to hear a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Make a motion, we take a 5-minute recess.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 5-minute recess. Mic's off. Please make sure you do not talk amongst each other about the case. This is
Jim, I'm not
opportunity
sure
to-
you were here. This motion was so that we can review all 14 of their. Okay. All right.
And Barry will be back.
Okay, I need a motion to come back into session.
Motion to reconvene?
I can need a second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, back in session. We still have final statements. We're going to start with opposition. We'll have 5 minutes for any final statements. Was it Karen, opposition? Do you have anything else to add or any final statements?
Just the fact that he says that you don't know who these people are. It's a small community. We all talk. And they're my neighbors, in case he's considering it. But, you know, is 4 going to become 8? Is 8 going to become 12 down the road? This is just the beginning, because this is how this stuff goes, and we all know it. I was sold apartments. I agreed to apartments. I was not sold short-term hotel rentals. I don't believe that's right. And there was a lot of opposition to the apartments. But they brought us around saying that we needed single-family housing in the area because we were short of it. So why would we give it up? Why would we go to a hotel when we need single-family housing? That was their main premise, selling these buildings. So if that's the premise that they sold it to us on, why is it not working now? Why do we need to go to short-term rentals? I'm just opposed to the whole thing. I think it's wrong. We didn't buy that. And now they're pushing that on. And I'm telling you, 4 will become 8, 8 will become 12, because that's how all this stuff goes. So I am definitely opposed to it.
Okay, thank you. Final statements. Tony, I know you also had something to say. This would be your time, either one.
I'll just go quickly. Working with Kim Hads, the Director of Tourism here in Oldham County, she does a wonderful and beautiful job of promoting Oldham County as a place to stay. So what we have recognized is, you know, this isn't a major tourism component at this apartment complex. So yes, people will be staying overnight here in the apartment complex who are touring through and coming through Oldham County as a tourist. But I think and believe more that this is, you know, more of a local component of offering a place to stay for a short time period for people who are more local, who need residency, such as our traveling nurses, people who are displaced from their own property for short periods of time. So it will be more of a residential purpose, and also considering that if it's the first unit being a 2-bedroom place, that's 4 people. So that's probably 2 cars maybe that are coming, 2-3 cars coming in and out of that complex. So that's 50 to 60% occupancy. It's going to be actually less traffic than if 2, 3, 4 more cars actually live there in the property. So I think that's something that's really big to consider, is that it's actually going to be less traffic coming in and out, as well as the residence part.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just want to thank you all again, by the way, for your time and for listening to this very informative and very spirited, quite frankly, discussion about this proposal. I don't want to rehash necessarily everything that we talked about already today, and as we've discussed, there's already a document that we have asked you all to take a look at. I do apologize in terms of just getting it to everybody today. That is on me entirely, but I do appreciate all the questions and the discussion that we've had about this. The one thing I would, again, just talk about is we are asking at this point for, it's a 216-unit apartment complex as it currently sits. And what we're asking for is to be given the flexibility to ask and seek permits for up to 4 units. And there's been discussion again about what does that mean in terms of the 12 months and how many units and everything else. But the owner is going to have to identify within the next 12 months, if he decides to do so, and get that permit, he will have to identify up to 4 units when he applies for those permits. Now, if Mr. Pollard and his team decide in the next 12 months that they're only going to apply for 1 permit, then that's only one that they're going to be allowed to have at the end of the day. And as Mr. Baxter has indicated, the interpretation, and I think that's a fair interpretation of the statute and the ordinance, is going to be that the rest are going to essentially drop off. So it is, in fact, on Mr. Pollard and his team to decide as a business perspective what they want to do. But we are asking for the flexibility, given the current layout of the property. It's an R4 high density residential area with long-term leases as it is, and quite frankly, long-term could mean 31 days. And what we're talking about for short-term is up to 29 days. And so there's really a small difference in that context. That being said, we want to make sure that we have the flexibility to utilize an existing vacant apartment at a bare minimum, and up to 3 that we may identify within the next 12 months, which may become available, that we can use for this limited purpose. And again, if the owner decides after that, within that 12 months, that that's not going to work out, then the permits won't be sought, and what we're talking about is a fewer number than what we're actually seeking today. But when this body looks at what we believe to be the request, it's looking at what the ordinance provides. Is it consistent with the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan, and is it consistent with the zoning ordinance? And as we've identified in this, as part of this testimony, we believe the answer to that is yes. I do want to just make sure that I clarify for the purpose of the record, when we talk about, again, the traveling nurses and the transient medical employees, we understand that that is a prospective benefit to this, and that this is part of a proposal that is ongoing. So we don't want to say that this is in fact a guarantee to anyone, but we're anticipating that being the case. That being said, there are in fact present conditions that we believe actually justify or support a finding in our favor. And that includes, for example, as we've already talked about, you've got individuals traveling along I-71, you've got individuals within the Oldham County area who may be displaced for whatever purpose, whether it be unforeseen or foreseen, as we've already heard from earlier applicants today, where they in fact had to stay at an Airbnb while their home was being redone. And so we want to have the flexibility to have that option right now, where there are none that otherwise exist unless you go to Louisville or unless you go to LaGrange. And we think, again, given that it meets the elements or the strictures and the confines of the Oldham County zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan, and based upon the testimony here, we would respectfully ask that you all grant the conditional use permit as we've applied for up to 4 units for this purpose. And again, I thank you all for your time this morning.
Okay. 8 seconds to spare, Mr. Swansburg.
Very good. Okay, board, questions for anybody in the audience?
Just one point of clarity that I want to make sure I understand I'm sorry. One point that I just need clarified. Did we land on an agreement as far as if there are 4 units identified in that time period, those are the 4 units that will be used for this purpose in perpetuity?
That is correct.
All right,
so
thank
the 4
you.
units at that point, that's what they would stick to.
And those units could convert back to being long-term rentals, but no other ones would take their place?
That is our position, yes, ma'am.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to close the floor. Open it up for general discussion.
Well, I don't think we've seen an application like this before, right? And, you know, granting, so it's really kind of 2 separate issues. One is it's within an apartment complex. Second is that it's for a unit identified, and 3 that aren't identified, which causes a little bit of potential confusion and misunderstanding down the road. I think just it would be easier if it was just for 1. I mean, and then we know exactly what we're dealing with, okay? The fact that we're dealing with 3, and then there's, you know, the application process down the road and what gets grandfathered in gets really confusing to me. So, I mean, I think it'd be easier if it was just 1. If we were
the conditional use permit goes with the property, not the unit.
Right.
So if you identify 4, that's for the entire
Right,
development.
I understand that, yes.
So they don't have to be in the same building, they don't have to be adjacent.
Right.
So the fact that there's potentially 4 is going to be controlled by the annual application, I think, for
There's nothing to
use.
say that the apartments can't be turned into condos, or that that there's multiple owners that come in, and now there's You know, there's other owners, one person owns one
Again,
building.
we're dealing
another
with
person-
supposition.
Yeah, I know, but that's just in
that's-
terms of approving 4 that we don't know about. I mean, 3 others that we don't know about right
Well, as far as the 4 and which 4 and the coming and going and staying on top of the permits and the applications and all that, I mean, I don't think that's relevant for our thought into the motion.
Right.
That is interesting, that stuff is gonna have to happen, but that's all gonna fall on Mr. Pollard.
Right.
To stay on top of those applications and which 4 and keeping these things alive and which ones expire, you know. He's asking for up to 4.
Right.
He's identified 1 right now. As far as traffic goes,
I'm not that worried about traffic. I mean, I
don't see
hear
any-
you.
I
I
don't
agree.
see
It's not
any
going to be
increase in
incremental
traffic.
traffic.
Okay,
It's
sorry.
just,
It's
there's
an
already an
apartment.
issue in that, and I was just trying to prod our development people that we need to get traffic signals in that area. That's
not
almost
our purview
irrelevant.
either.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. It's not a factor.
Not
for
the
this.
point of this.
You know, I think so this is open discussion. We have heard these STRPs, we've heard of several of them, and I'm thrilled that the county is trying to address this issue. Opposition made some very valid points. This is our county, and you know, how do we want this county and you know to be, and the additional increase in demand on the county and the traffic and the people and we're having a new hospital coming in and new apartments and new Kroger. You know, the county is growing, right? and so just what opposition voiced, it's a concern, right? I'm not. I agree, with opposition. Yes, that is a concern. However, as far as STRPs go, I think this, in my opinion, I applaud this use of the apartments. I think testimony was given. Well, these things are renters anyway. They come and go every year. This is not residential. So a lot of opposition that we've heard in the past, I don't think is relevant for this. I'm in support of this.
As far, the other thing I would like, as far as accepting this as our motion, I'm not in favor of this. I think our motion's based upon what we do.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I agree. I've taken half of this and said we don't even need this.
I agree.
I appreciate their interest in doing this, but I don't want to set a precedent that someone else is writing our motions for us.
I agree.
Sure. Mr. Pollard paid a nice penny for getting that done, but I appreciate Mr. Pollard's efforts, but I think you wasted your money, sir.
And Member Ward, I don't want to interject myself here about that. I understand your point of view. I think the purpose of the motion, the information is just that. It's informational. It gives you all something to look at that you can incorporate into your motion if you think appropriate. Obviously, this is the applicant's point of view about what they believe supports the motion. I don't think it's, I don't want to speak for Mr. Swansburg. I don't think he's trying to invade your province. I think he's trying to be helpful in giving information that they believe is supportive of the motion.
He's trying to advocate for his client, which he should.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
And along with that, we encourage people to write finding of fact. You have to make finding of facts in your decision. You can, again, accept them all, reject them all, or take parts of any of these, but it's a starting point in formulating either a motion for or against, whichever. So some of these things I agree there's inconsistencies. One place they say 3, another place they say 4. So to adopt the whole thing, isn't necessary. But again, it's not an attempt. You have seen these in the past. There have been applicants who are represented by attorneys who do submit.
In my short tenure, no.
Yeah, we've had them. Okay. So along the same line, board, the staff has given us potential conditions of approval. Is there any discussion about additional conditions of approval if that's the direction we're going?
Yes.
Okay, what do you got?
The limiting the units to 4, and that 4, once identified, will be the 4 used in perpetuity. Adding that to the conditions of approval.
Okay, all right,
That wasn't in the conditions.
okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Okay. Motion to approve OC 23-036 for a conditional use permit for the non-owner occupied short-term rental property located at 10,000 Judge Cardin Boulevard in Crestwood. The proposed use will not impair the integrity and character of the zone if there are specific restrictions on location, extent, and character of performance. Conditions of approval. The conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the September 21st, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning short-term rental properties outlined in the Oldham County Zoning Regulations, Section 250-050. The applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit before renting the property. There will be a limit of 4 units used for this purpose in this complex. Once those units are identified, those are the units that will be used for this purpose in perpetuity. And that is my motion.
Quick question.
Okay.
For Barry. That last comment, those 4 units should be used in perpetuity. Do we need to put, how do we state that, and knowing that the applications are only good for a year, and if he lapses on an application, it's not in perpetuity, all of a sudden, you're down to 3, or you're down to however many, right? Is her motion acceptable, given this application expiration?
Well, for the sake of clarity, I suppose if she would be willing to add, so long as the applicant continues to file the appropriate applications on an annual basis.
And/or that these cannot be interchanged with other units.
That's
That-
that's what she's saying.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Once
and-
identified.
And then it does go to that annual application.
Okay. So we're adding to the 4th condition of approval that the once identified, these units will be used for this purpose as they are specified in the annual application.
I think that covers it, yes.
Okay. And that is my motion.
All right, we've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. Minutes. Any adjustments to minutes? I've got one. On the, Gretchen was absent last time, and then the very first sentence, board member Chetwood called and read docket, da-da-da-da-da. Problem with that.
Was it here?
I think,
I think I read them.
yeah, that's right. I think
Yes.
Charlie was the one reading them all, so.
I was not identifying as member Chitwood.
Other than that, any adjustments to the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve as amended?
I'll move that.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying approved.
Aye.
Approved.
Those not in favor signify. It's been approved. Can I get a motion to dismiss? Any other business?
I just wanted to tell you, yesterday was our filing deadline, so we do have cases for you. So October 19th, I believe, is the meeting date. So we'll be here next month.
Okay, great.
Motion
to adjourn.
to adjourn.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, meeting adjourned.